over 10 years ago now, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim released, and a decade on, people are still talking about it, and the game is still being re-released on various different platforms, including appliances you didn't even realise could play games. I mean, that last bit was partially a joke, but is it really? It's safe to say that Skyrim was a massively successful game. When it released 10 years ago, it did something that few games managed to do. It captured players' attention, and also, like The Elder Scrolls has always been able to do, it captured players' imaginations. Over the years since, Skyrim's longevity has been kept alive mostly by the modding community and the amazing experiences that those people have been able to bring to the table. And while Skyrim may have its difficulties and may not be the absolute best game of all time, it still finds itself amongst many people's favourites, including my own. Skyrim is a magical game with huge emphasis on its sandbox, and to me it's no surprise that it still finds itself to be relevant a decade after its release. That's not to say that Bethesda shouldn't stop attempting to re-release this game at every given opportunity. We all know how frustrating and tiresome that is, but that shenanigans aside, in this video we are going to be re-experiencing the magic of The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and hopefully uncover exactly why this game is as special as it is. The footage will be from a modded playthrough because I feel like the mods feed into this point, and it's a bit later than I would have liked because for about 10 days there after the Anniversary Edition update dropped, I couldn't access the game. It had broken, which is weird because I didn't use the script extender, so I had to go through all of my mods and figure out which mod was causing the problem, and it was the Killable Children mod. My game is ruined, so while it may be a touch on the late side, finally here you go. So be sure to kick back with a brew and relax, and enjoy this video of me revisiting the magic of The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, 10 years later. Skyrim begins in the traditional Elder Scrolls fashion. You arrive as a prisoner from a distant land, with no backstory, no information as to why you were captured. You were just simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. You have no past, no present, and at this point no future. You simply just are. You're a blank slate that you can simply create into whatever you want to be. Your first job is to create your character. You can choose from any race that you want to be within the Elder Scrolls lore's confines, and within that you can customize your character to look however you want them to look. The only backstory for this character being the one that you imagined for yourself. And then you can name your character whatever you want to call them. You're carted by the Imperials into Helgen, where they intend to execute you, with the game already teaching you about the world space that is Skyrim and what we can expect from the hundreds of hours to come. But before we can get our heads chopped off, a dragon attacks Helgen, thus beginning our first quest and our new life in Skyrim. Our only objective is to not get fucked up by the dragon. This opener introduces us to the main quest line revolving around the dragons of Skyrim, however the freedom to pick and choose what you want to do in this world space is still yours. Once you've escaped Helgen, you can go off and do the main quest if you want to, however you have just as much freedom to go off and do everything else. There's no sense of urgency once you've done the small introduction. The world space of Skyrim is yours to explore however you see fit, and everywhere you go there is something for you to do, something for you to see, whether that be the main quest or one of the many side quest lines, or simply a side quest or side objective as you go through this world. When you leave Helgen, it doesn't matter which direction you take or where you go, because everything feels discovered naturally. Sometimes you're interacting with the world, other times the world is interacting with you. You feel a part of it. You don't feel like it necessarily revolves around you, though if you do all of the side quest lines it certainly starts to feel like it, but I suppose that's part of the magic of Skyrim. You're not necessarily meant to do everything. You can if you want to, but the game is about carving your own path, about doing the things that you want to do because you feel like those are things that you would do. You aren't following a story to a certain degree, you are experiencing your own story, your own adventure. The game gives you the freedom to decide what your character is, who your character is, and how that relates to you. You are the character, there is no protagonist, and with that you can take this character and do almost anything in the world space that the game provides for you in any order that you really want within reason, and the game allows for that to feel natural because following the main storyline is more of an afterthought than an essential part of the Skyrim experience. If you wanted to be a soldier, you can join the Imperial Legion or the Stormcloaks and tackle the Civil War questline from two different perspectives depending on which one suits you. If you want to be an assassin, you can join the Dark Brotherhood. If you want to be a thief, you can join the Thieves Guild. If you want to be a mage, you can join the College of Winterhold, and if you want to be a warrior, then you can join the Companions. Each of these different paths have their own quest line to follow. And not everything that you can do in Skyrim needs to necessarily follow a quest line. If you want to become the best blacksmith, you can just level up your smithing by doing blacksmithing. If you want to become an alchemist, you can level up your alchemy by doing alchemy. If you want to become an enchanter, you can level up your enchanting by enchanting. And doing these things may or may not come with their own rewards and benefits, depending on whether or not it suits what you're going for. And you get the point, the world is your oyster. And while it's certainly dated by modern standards and even by the standards of 2011 to a certain degree, the open world feels vibrant and alive. NPCs go about their routines regardless of whether or not you're around. Some are inconsequential, others you can have conversations with, and others find themselves to be quest givers. Some are not right away, some take a bit of warming up to. Sometimes you're not even interacting with NPCs to find quests and things to do. You might find out about something in a book or stumble across something on the road. And in absence of things for you to do, there's typically things that you can learn when you're in a specific place. And when you're not going out to find the content, at times the content will find its way to you as you naturally progress through the game. For what is a pretty janky game, we won't kid ourselves, the delivery of content is pretty smooth, and it helps the world feel alive because in every corner of it there's a story to be told. And then outside of the delivery of content, there is the variety of content. Despite the game's simplistic gameplay, there are plenty of quests that find themselves lending better to different skills. Say for example, the Thieves Guild questline has you use a lot of thieving skills, the Companions questline has you rely on your prowess as a warrior, and the Dark Brotherhood questline for example has you use your sneak skill to kill people. I would say the College of Winterhold questline has you use your magic skills, but you could probably blitz through the entire thing using a mace, so I don't think it's a particularly good example, but it also shows that Skyrim allows you to use your own interpretations of what you're doing to achieve your tasks. You want to sneak? Go for it. You want to go loud and proud and kill everybody in sight? Go for it. You want to use magic? Sure, why not? Just do the damn thing. Does Skyrim master this system perfectly? Of course it doesn't. The College of Winterhold questline, for example, is simply far too unreliant on magic as a core element, and that issue is perhaps a bit of a theme. However, because of Skyrim's huge emphasis on its sandbox, you can overlook it, because if you want to immerse yourself in what you're doing, you will choose to use the magicka, or whatever else that specific thing that you're doing would require you to do for you to feel immersed in it. What a lot of RPGs don't do so well, which I think Skyrim does do well, is provide this ability to choose how you do things, because it actually provides different means to do them. Not necessarily always, but definitely to an extent where you don't feel like your freedom as the player is taken away, whereas other games will say that they give you the opportunity to do things however you want as an excuse to script quests as minimally as possible and make them as uninteresting as possible, and yet they still only really provide one way in which that quest can actually be completed. What Skyrim does is actually provide a bit of player freedom. It gives you an objective and tells you to go do it, and more often than not does not specify how. Some quests will have more ways to deal with things, others may be a bit more specific, but it doesn't disclose this information to you in a quest menu or anything like that, and so it doesn't feel like the game is holding your hand or asking you to play in a specific way. If there are optional objectives, they don't restrict gameplay, they just provide you with extra things that you can do if you so wish to do so. And in return for doing them, these optional objectives can prove to be helpful by providing good information, or helping you out with something specifically, or even just to enrich the world space. And what I like about these optional objectives and how they're implemented is they only really appear when they're necessary, or if they provide something that you wouldn't think of, and the choice to do it is still up to you. And then there's the variety in tone with these quests. Some quests may be bleak and dark and tell a very emotionally moving story to a degree. I mean, it's still Skyrim, it has the ridiculous kinks, but you know what I mean.
Master, look. It's the file.
What? How?
It doesn't matter, look. It's refilling with your tonic as we speak.
Marvelous.
He is gone.
Others may find themselves being pretty action-packed. Some don't require much action at all. And this tone can also be influenced by where the game takes you for this specific quest. A city feels different to a Nordic ruin. A Nordic ruin feels different to a Dwemer ruin. A Dwemer ruin feels different to a cave. And a cave feels different to a bandit camp. And the big cities especially feel different from each other. You can tell the difference between Whiterun, Windhelm, Riften, Markarth and Solitude, and the regions around these holds all have their own unique atmosphere. Like I said, the game gives you plenty of reasons to explore all of it, and as you're doing it, you notice the differences between the regions as you go through them, and as a result, the entire experience feels like one big adventure. Is it perfect, however? No, but we'll get to why that's not necessarily important a bit later on in the video. Hint, it might be mods. The quality of delivering the world space aside, Skyrim from the gameplay perspective is a pretty simplistic game. The combat at its core is pretty hack and slash. Blacksmithing, alchemy, enchanting are all menu based. You equip different gear through menus, hotkeys or your favourites menu, and there's limited animations for interacting with things, and that kind of suits the game. Interiors and big cities are also in their own cells, so you will find yourself meeting loading screens quite often. And the level up system is pretty simple as well. You level up by leveling up your skills individually, which you do through using them. When you reach an overall level up, you can choose to improve your magicka, health or stamina, and then you can use the skill points you get to invest in whichever skill tree you are going for, completely separate from the skills that you may not be interested in because they aren't going to do you any good, which gives it a benefit over skill graphs. And while it may not be the most intricate system in the world, it at least allows enough player agency for you to be able to fully dictate your own playstyle. The gameplay systems overall may work for Skyrim, but they're pretty simple and peeled back, even when compared to previous Elder Scrolls games. However, this is where the magic of Skyrim's longevity truly comes into play, because despite this, and in fact despite any other issues Skyrim might have, and believe me, it has metric tons, courtesy of the modding community, there are mods available that fix it. The footage used in this video for the most part has been from a modded Skyrim playthrough. Granted, it's not the most comprehensive modded Skyrim playthrough going, but you get the point. Mods have become such an integral part to the longevity of Skyrim that it's almost impossible to play the game without them. Not because the base game is especially bad, but because the mods really make the experience. Skyrim as a game is a template, and you use the mods to make it however you want to make it, however you want to experience it. Do you want to improve the gameplay experience? There are mods for that. Do you want to improve the visuals? Of course there are mods for that. Do you want to improve the lighting? There are mods for that. Do you want to kill children? Yes, there are mods for that, you strange bastard. I definitely didn't have that installed. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is the most modded game of all time. On Nexus mods alone, there are at least 100,000 mods to download between the original and the special edition, and there have been nearly 3 billion unique downloads. That doesn't take into consideration other sites that people get mods from and people modding on consoles, though it's understandably more restrictive there. However, with the special edition, Bethesda added modding on consoles because they understood by this point it was an integral part of their game. Granted, Bethesda did use the fact that mods exist as a cheap means to avoid improving their game, and as a result there are some bugs in Skyrim that have been there since launch and have been with every single edition that's come out. I think it's fair to say that over the years modders have filled every single gap left by the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, fixing bugs, improving visuals, improving lighting, improving gameplay, adding in more gear, more NPCs, more followers, sometimes reworking entire aspects of the game, adding in new quests, new stories, and locations. And then there are the silly mods. Some mods, for example, turn dragons into Thomas the Tank Engine. Just like in the game itself, when it comes to the mods, there is something for everybody. Whether you take issue with one aspect of the game or another, or if you just don't want to take it seriously and you want to turn it into a silly fest, you can do everything and more. Skyrim is designed with mods in mind. It's meant to be modded. That's just the game. It may not be the best game of all time on its own, but you can make it the experience that you want to have out of it. And the community behind this that partakes in this is why Skyrim has the longevity that it's had. In fact, some modders have gone as far as to rebuild previous Elder Scrolls games in Skyrim. And the sheer scope and ambition of some mods just goes to show just how massive the modding community for Skyrim actually is. This game is so easily moddable that it's captured players' imaginations to the point where they are injecting themselves into the experience. The game is so malleable and you can mold it into whatever you want it to be with both big and small changes alike. And that's why this game has had the longevity that it's had. 2 generations down the line and people are still talking about Skyrim. Bethesda is still re-releasing Skyrim. It's gotten to a point where it's annoying, granted, but that wouldn't be happening if people weren't interested in Skyrim still. And I don't say that in order to blame the consumer for Bethesda's laziness, but more so to just further imply that Skyrim has been a massive sensation. That's not to say that everybody who still plays this game mods it. Some people are still perfectly happy with vanilla Skyrim. However, the reason why I keep coming back to Skyrim is because I can shake up the mods and make the experience completely different and unique to the last time I played the game. And within some moderation, of course, to me that just never gets old. However, while I certainly think that mods play a huge part into why the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is as popular as it is even today, there are other aspects that it would be remiss to not mention. Firstly, it's an Elder Scrolls game. They can feel incredibly immersive built on the lore alone. There is so much lore to the Elder Scrolls that it's impossible to know even a fraction of it without having an aneurysm. The advantage of already having a universe so thick with lore that it's almost as in-depth as real history works wonders for filling this world space with intricate new additions to that already established universe, and it furthers the game by making it feel convincing. Granted, the other side of this is the fanbase finds itself filled with no short supply of zealots, and that can make interacting with the community that surrounds the Elder Scrolls quite difficult, and that has no bearing on just playing Skyrim itself. The vast lore that the Elder Scrolls has allows Skyrim to feel like a really creative, really interesting game, just like it did with Morrowind and Oblivion. And the games before that, I don't doubt. And the game doesn't neglect to dip into the vast pool of knowledge that is the Elder Scrolls lore either. You learn about bits of history that have happened since the events of Oblivion. You learn about bits of history from before that. The game doesn't forget about Daedric princes and has plenty of quests that have you encounter them. It even adds new bits of lore in that fit to simply fit the storytelling. At least they fit as far as I can see. I'm gonna be honest, I'm hardly a scholar of the Elder Scrolls lore because it feels like you need a scholarship to even begin to understand it sometimes. The game even uses its loading screens, since you see an abundance of them, to fill you in on little bits and pieces of lore, and when it's not doing that, it's giving you hints and things like that, and even that can be modded to be expanded. The game is constantly feeding you information about the universe, big or small, and that helps immerse you in what you're doing. While the quest lines may not always be the best pieces of storytelling of all time, you can tell from the moment you start that there is a deep and rich history behind each and every single thing, and that serves to involve you in what you're doing because you feel like you are becoming a part of that. And I feel like the biggest example of the game involving you in its lore is none other than its own inventive take on dragons. You Are the Dragonborn, a name that's been heard in previous Elder Scrolls titles, though it's never been fully understood what that actually means. And what it means with regards to the dragons returning in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is that we can master the voice almost naturally and utilise it against dragons and kill them and absorb their souls, being the only way to permanently kill a dragon. And dragons in themselves are more than just ruthless sky lizard carnivores. And they don't just breathe fire, they themselves use the voice because the voice is in their language. And while my explanation of that may have been subpar, the delivery of dragons in this game is certainly not. Yes, they can attack at any time in any outside place, be it a town, a city, or the arse end of nowhere, but they also aren't always aggressive. There's so much to what could have otherwise just been the dragons are here plot, and the fact that it's so unique certainly plays into what makes the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim as an experience such a magical one. Granted, as far as the game is concerned, it can still be a little bit on the janky side, and another criticism you'll hear people say is that the dragons in Skyrim aren't even real dragons, considering they only have 2 legs, which makes them wyverns. But I don't think that last point necessarily matters, because in the end of the day we're still talking about a mythical creature that didn't fucking exist. And while the lore is certainly one reason why the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls in general is so immersive, the individualism behind this take on dragons is a reason in itself, and the depth it provides to what could have easily just been a cheap gimmick shows just how important the lore and world building is to an Elder Scrolls game. And despite not necessarily being as deep as previous entries in the franchise, Skyrim definitely doesn't forget this. In conclusion, all of the positives that make Skyrim so great play into one core theme, and that is that this is a game that simply captures the player's imagination and allows the player the means to do with that as they will. You can build up your character however you want, with no restrictions telling you to do things a specific way. You can explore this world space in whichever fashion pleases you. The main story doesn't lock off content. You can go where you want, you can do what you want within the reasons of what the game provides, and in every single corner and crevice of Skyrim there is something that will catch your eye, whether that be a side quest or just something that you can overhear or something going on. The game is rich with juicy Elder Scrolls lore, and for every shortcoming that this game has, there is typically a mod available that fixes it. And the modding community simply cannot be discounted as a key factor for why this game has had the longevity that it has. Then of course you've got to factor in dragons, which are again a great inventive take on something that's done quite often in media. And what you're left with Skyrim is a game that simply has atmosphere. It always feels like there's another quest or another adventure to be had in this world space, and thanks to modding especially, that is the case. I suppose the only question is, can the Elder Scrolls 6 provide this same sense of adventure, this same means for the modding community to dig their hooks in and make something truly magnificent? Can the brilliance of this game specifically be recaptured again, and could it even possibly be enhanced and furthered? Or will the Elder Scrolls 6 provide a new formula for creating the atmosphere that Skyrim has, that Oblivion had, that Morrowind had? Or will Bethesda turn the Elder Scrolls 6 into a disaster, like Fallout 76? And if the latter is the case, then I feel like that will be a massive shame. Is Skyrim the best game of all time? I'm not saying that because I frankly don't believe that it is, but it's definitely one of my favourites because no matter what I'm playing or how far gaming comes, I find myself returning to this game time and time again. And I'm certain I'm not the only one, considering we're still discussing this game 10 years after it released. Does that mean Bethesda needs to keep re-releasing it? No, I'd rather they didn't. I'd rather they focus on the Elder Scrolls 6, on Starfield for all the shits I give about that. I don't doubt that I will keep returning to this game and keep experiencing the atmosphere of it, and I'll keep experimenting with mods to see just how far this experience can be enhanced. But the Elder Scrolls franchise is simply far too rich with lore for this to be it, for re-releases of Skyrim to be the norm forever. And so while it's been a brilliant 10 years with Skyrim, I think it's time to move forward from this game onto newer horizons. But I don't doubt the memories I've made while playing this game and the memories I'm yet to make playing this game will be with me forever. And that's how magical of an experience I believe the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is. Thanks for watching.